question and also a contribution is with the media. So I'm in the media, even though I'm also in the ICT space. And one thing I know that Chika said, which I like so much, was the fact that we have to celebrate successes around ICT. So, for example, what Odo's government has done, for example, is remarkable, but I'm just hearing about it for the first time. So, I want to ask you guys, how can we effectively integrate the media? Because I know in Silicon Valley, if the media guys gather and say this idea should be promoted and blasted, you know what will happen? I mean, everyone will hear about the idea, and it goes, even though the idea may not be so remarkable. So, what can we do with the media? Where I play, where we can use the media to drum it into the ears of government or whoever that ICT is just the way to go. Thank you.
As you were making your submission, something occurred to me that this is emerging as a chicken and egg kind of conundrum. Who should be encouraging who? The private sector encouraging government. Who should be convening, this particular platform that's needed now to begin to make government understand the importance of ICT, because it's all about buying in, making government to buy into, a worthy project. In them analyzing their challenges, I didn't hear anybody talk about change of policy in the government. I want to ask, change of policy, is there any way it has been a challenge in the ICT? The Cross River representative saying the BDL basic digital literacy thing that has been introduced. Now, I was wondering, what if another government comes in place? What happens? Change in policy, does it affect, ICT and all of that? And I also want to ask about power supply. Of course, we cannot, we know the essence of power. How has power been a challenge for ICT? Thank you.
You came to them, you talked about the need for children to grow up with computers. You also asked the person from Cross River about concerning government focus. I think he said something. It's much of a structural problem. You talked about running faster. How can we do that with broken legs? That's what I'm saying. When you talk about, when you talked about schools not having windows and all those issues, is that not part of the need? How do we come about getting those things right so that this technology itself, the usage of it can move? Thank you.
I'm not talking about money, I'm not talking about finances and all that. I'm actually talking about capacity. Because up until now, I've actually built like 3 startups that failed. Probably the fourth was what at least got some sort of.
You should be killed for that. Go ahead.
So really, the reason I'm saying all this is because I think all along I realized that capacity was an issue. And all along I had to work on my capacity to be able to understand what it means to build a sustainable IT business model. Now what I want to ask is, I've actually seen other startups that are actually coming up, and somehow I see the mistakes I make, they're also making. So what I want to ask, particularly for Chika, is, apart from funding, how do you empower people that are techies? Because I think there was a time I once went for like a funding meeting and all that, and one of the things I was being told was, you sound too much like a tech person rather than a business person. So how can you help tech people to sound more business, to be able to see that, okay, this idea needs to work? And even if like IT people don't probably want to see the business part, how can you raise business people to actually see the business side of IT to help these people?
And the MD of Ovuterra Limited. Ovuterra is a private think tank organization specifically focused on CSR and building and bridging the gap between the public and private sectors in delivering on projects in Nigeria. So our work spans healthcare, education, and other areas, IT. And it's particularly interesting for me because IT is the backbone of every single industry. So your work is kind of like mine. You work with all sectors. So I'm curious to know, it's a first of all a question, is there like what Lagos Business School did for the MBA? Is there something like an MIT relative, like that kind of school in Nigeria at the tertiary level? Because we're talking of building the children, from the primary schools to the secondary schools to the universities. We don't even have the skill sets in terms of the teachers, even the infrastructure. There are schools that don't even have computers and there's no knowledge base, So how can we teach within the schools when we don't even have the structure in place? So for people from the public sector, from the government, like Cross River State, that is a forward-thinking state, is this perhaps something that would be considered that could be developed, maybe like an Oracle school or Cisco, to bridge that gap, because you can't bring them through the primary and secondary school models that we have and then expect them to suddenly flourish when they don't have the relevant educational